Okay, we're recording. Hi, everyone. This is David P. France. I'm coming to you from Switzerland. And today I am talking with one of my good friends from way back when, Valerie Barnes. How you doing, Valerie?
Hi, David. Nice to see you on the other side of the world.
So I know Valerie. When did I meet you? In the 90s?
Oh, are you going to date us?
Wow, sorry. In the 90s. Well, basically, this is
somewhere
the
in the middle
time I
of
was
the
in New
90s.
York City,
Yeah,
right? I
somewhere
was
in the
living in New
middle.
York City.
Yeah. I was saying somewhere in the middle of the 90s when all the craziness was going
Ran the
on.
craziness.
Yeah.
So to give you guys some context, I attended law school and business school in New Orleans at Tulane University from 92 to 95, was put on probation for my grades, went to New York to get a job and ended up staying there 3 years from 90, I think it was 95 to 98, and then graduated and then flew back to New York. So I think that's how, and that was around the time that I met you. And there was a lot of crazy stuff going on during that time.
Yeah, there was a lot of happy days.
So tell everybody, exactly what you do, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Well, I like to think of myself as a storyteller. And, how do I tell stories? It's by using the medium of video, sometimes film. I tell a lot of different stories. I videotape a lot of different things for people. So I guess that about sums it up in a very general, vague way. How does that work? Is that good
But
for
you're
starters?
not vague. You're not vague though. You're well, let me broaden this out. So when I met Val, I don't know if you were working at video. You were doing videography, or you were doing music, or combination of both?
Yeah, it could have been. I'm thinking if it was in the mid 90s, it's when I was like starting the video stuff,
Right.
kind of working myself in there. And because by the time that things got, that I actually started to do my own business, it was more around 2000, because I think that was around the time that you and I connected for the J-Lo thing.
Right.
2000.
So I think what it was is that you were filming a lot of music videos.
I
And
was
then
filming
it
a lot, yeah.
moved into wedding videos, more so than
Yeah,
you saw an
I was
opportunity
kind
there.
of doing a collection of everything, I had connected, I was doing weddings, I basically wanted to run my own business. And, it was a little bit difficult breaking in on certain levels, for women at the time. So I decided to do it on my own, and I started working the wedding industry because, women, it's a little bit easier for women to slide into that. But at the same time, I was interested in doing other things as well. So that's when I ended up working for this online hip hop website, the .com.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
when we
Here we
started
go.
doing all the underground hip hop stuff,
Right.
before the artists became known. This was the underground scene that was going on.
And there was a guy named Kerry. Am I right? Was it
Kari, that was
Kari?
Kari, yeah, who actually I'm connected with still on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
He got married. He's a writer in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. So he really.
Yes, yeah.
And he used to bring you on different shoots, right? Like he would call you up and say, "Hey, there's something going on."
Yeah, there
over
were a
here.
few. There were a few producers. It was him. It was this guy by the name of Docs.
Right. I remember.
Yeah, that we would go to these different eventful shoots where, where a lot of crazy things happened depending on, the event that was going on.
Right.
Like breaking chairs over people's heads and
Right.
fun stuff.
You guys have. I'm gonna interrupt you. Val was getting a call for the hip hop gigs like consistently after a certain time, and I would hear the stories about her time hanging out with this rapper, and she would ask me whether I knew who they were. I'm like, "Are you hanging out with those?" It was like she's hanging out with.
Like
at that point, it was
remember?
the emerging elite of rappers, right? I would say some of them turned out to be
Yeah, like Ludacris.
Like who Ludacris.
Well, Ludacris at the time had just gotten signed by Def Jam South.
Right.
So yeah, he hadn't blown up yet. So
Hmm.
he was one of the guys. You know, there were some other people as well. You know, I don't know that they ever really blew up nationally,
Right.
you know, but they did make a name for themselves, like on a certain level, you know.
Right.
There was him. I think there was, God, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that had all the gold teeth. I forget his
Uh,
name. Because we went to Def Jam offices to interview him. For some reason, I keep thinking his name was Tricky something or other, but I can't
uh-huh.
remember. It's such a long
Uh-huh.
time ago, you know. But it
Yeah.
was indeed
At,
a
at that
colorful.
time, I was working at the Charlie Rose show.
Were you? You weren't
I
at
think
MS?
so. Right, because when I came back from Tulane, I'd finished and drove nonstop from New Orleans to Washington, D.C. straight,
That's a little
and
crazy,
visited my parents, and then I went back to New York.
right?
I had secured an internship with the Charlie Rose show, right? So it was at that time you were already doing the hip hop. You started going into it around 2000, right?
Yes, right.
And then I started working at MSNBC as a booker for guests.
Right.
And we simultaneously were moving into this area of, you were
Yeah,
doing video and I was doing news.
right. I remember that you were at MSNBC when I called you on
Uh-huh.
that day for the J-Lo thing.
Uh-huh.
Because
Right.
remember, it was the same day. You know, they called me and I talked to one of the guys at Puffy's place,
Mm-hmm.
and it was going to be that evening. And I called you and asked you if you wanted to come join me
Right.
and basically help point out people and kind of handle the
That's
interview.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Now, I didn't know, just to make it clear for people, Valerie started doing video and she started doing video on her own. I was not really as clear of what was going on until I started working in news and saw how they were using video. But it still didn't dawn on me that, what Valerie was doing and what we were doing were really the same thing, right? So I was in charge, or one of my responsibilities was to book guests for breaking news. So that meant at any point, if some emergency would happen, we would have to get the right person to and get them to agree to go on air. And lots of times it would be difficult because there was competition, right? So
yeah,
all the
right.
same outlets, CNN, MSNBC, even the majors, NBC, they all were going for the same guests. So a lot of the war stories or things that were going on, I would talk to Valerie about after work, and then that informed you. Like, I think David could do this particular assignment. She was invited to J Lo's, what was it, 30th birthday party?
Yeah, it was her 30th. It was a surprise
A
30th
surprise
birthday
party.
party.
Yeah, yeah. And Puffy
Mhm.
organized it, right?
Oh
So that
yeah.
was the first time. And can tell people what happened when we got to the door. When we got to the door.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. They were so disorganized. We had one woman come up to us who was the publicist, basically just kind of challenging us right at the door.
Right,
Who are you? Why are you here? I don't know who you are. Remember?
right. I remember.
And so then I had to say, well, so and so called us, and this is why we're here. And then she kind of backed off, you know. And then she said, well, make sure to give me the tape by the end of the
Right, she
night.
did say that.
And by the end of the night, she was so out of it. She was so loaded. She was stoned. She was drunk. And I'm like thinking to myself, if I give you this tape, you're going to lose it.
Uh,
We just walked out. Remember, we just left.
yeah, yeah.
Tape in hand.
But the
Here we
party,
go.
the party was amazing. There were all kinds of people,
Yeah,
like
it was.
Aaliyah was there. He had a Latin
Justin,
band.
Justin Timberlake
Justin
was there.
Timberlake was
Remember?
there, and
Fabio, Angie Harmon,
Angie Harmon, and all.
John, I
And
think John Takeda. Wasn't he
yeah,
there?
he was there. Yes, he was. Yes, he
Yes,
was.
yes.
And it was exciting because, like, I guess for me, we had heard about J Lo, but I think, everybody did at that point. But I think she was on the way of breaking out even in a bigger way,
Oh
right? So
yeah,
we were there
yeah,
at the
yeah,
time, and the fact
right.
that you were asked to tape that, And also what I remember is, remember
Oh, and
there
I
was
think, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
what?
Mark Ronson was spinning.
Yeah. Look, they had everybody
Yeah,
there, right?
yeah,
The woman, Angie, what's her name from
and Angie Harmon.
Angie Harmon was there.
Yeah, right, right.
Um, a lot of people, different people. So the thing that I remember the most was the picture of her running track on the wall. Do you remember that? On the
Oh,
left-hand side, like when we walk in, it was like there were sofas and that you could see
yeah.
the giant
It
picture. There
was
was a
like
giant picture of her running track.
level. Oh, wow, I don't remember that.
That's when I knew. I was like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Like, there's a
Yeah,
reason why that picture was there. It sort
yeah.
of symbolized, what was about to unfold. So tell
And
people like
I
what
have to
happened.
say, well, I remember, well, it was totally disorganized. I mean, it was crazy. It was packed. There was no direction from anybody. So
Oh,
David and I, right? So David
yeah,
and I just decided to go find people to interview them to give her a birthday wish.
that's
And
right.
that's when we started, like we got Fat Joe and we got Justin Timberlake when he had that cute little afro. We got Angie Harmon. We talked to, I think John Cicada. I keep thinking it's him, but I'm not really sure. I
Yeah, I
think it
think
was him.
yeah, it was him.
Was it him?
Yeah,
And
it was
then
him.
we just kind of worked the crowd, getting on
It
some
was a good,
big
it was a good
people.
idea. Because then what you did was you took all of those elements and you put them together,
Right,
right? And
right.
you actually built a story out of the different
Out of the
parts,
chaos.
out of the
Yeah,
chaos.
yeah. I mean, a lot of times people, when they want you to shoot video, and it doesn't matter if it's for special events like that or it's for promotional films, they really have no idea how the medium of video works. They're really clueless. They don't know how to tell a story. They don't know what's involved in preparing to put a piece together. They
So
have
in those
no clue.
situations, what do you do? Like, what is the process? You meet with them, right? I remember
Well, you
you
meet
meet with
with
them.
them, and I try to guide them as best I can. And sometimes they're very good at taking directions. Sometimes they're just terrible at taking directions, and they have no idea how much time a shoot actually takes. A lot of people, they have this idea in their head on how much video should cost, and they're usually way off in
Uh-huh.
terms of what it should cost and what's involved with it. And if you don't really have a budget, you're not going to get a lot of the little things that you want to have with it.
Hmm.
They just really don't know. So it's sitting there and trying to get them to understand and meet with them, and they still sometimes just don't get it. They get it when you're on the shoot. Oh, I didn't know how difficult that was. They don't really know.
And
So it's
so what are you've done a lot of shoots.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that started around 2000. It's now 2020. So like, what are some of the other? I remember some of them that you talked about, but what could you
Right.
share with us about the different
Well,
shoots you?
I mean, some of the stuff we did some red carpet stuff, if you
Right,
remember.
that's right, that's right.
You know,
Which
um,
one was that? What did we do? Do you
well, I
remember?
think we did two. I know definitely the one we did was for the anniversary party, that film,
What
with
anniversary
Alan.
party?
Yeah, with Alan Cumming. Remember it
Uh,
was. Yeah, remember it
oh,
was.
the
Uh, yeah,
film, right? Our
yeah,
anniversary party. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We did that, and some reason I think it was a last minute thing. I think you were working with Robert Verdi
That's right.
on the cable show, right? And it was something that you wanted to go and shoot. I think it was an opening, and I can't remember exactly
It
what it
was the Diane
was.
von Furstenberg, von Furstenberg opening.
Was it? No, it was no, not that one. That was another one actually.
Oh,
It was
okay.
another one where you thought it was important to do, and you decided to take me with you. It was a red carpet thing. It was somewhere in
Really?
Midtown. I think
Really?
Sarah Jessica Parker was
Oh,
was
really? I
invited.
forgot all about that.
I can't remember what it was though.
Well,
I forgot about it
there
too.
was another show. So after MSNBC, they basically ran me out of there. And I don't know, Val, you didn't come. Did you come pick me? I think you
Yeah.
did. You came to.
I,
Val
I've
was the
been dragging
person.
your stuff around for a long time.
Val was the person that I called when I got fired. So,
I got a
so
car.
she had a car, and she kind of knew what was going on. So I got fired from, well, they didn't renew the contract, but they treated me as if I was fired, right?
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
doing a great job. Now I did things a little, I wouldn't say unorthodox. I was just doing my thing, and I was getting the guests, and
No.
they were done with me. So Valerie helped me get my stuff out of there. Then I went to a short-lived show that Robert Verdi asked me to do, and I had 2 weeks to book the show.
Right.
Right, and I was the booker. What the thing that was interesting is, all along, you guys have to understand that in New York at that time, everybody was trying to get into media, right? It
Yeah.
was the big thing, and it was
Yeah.
super, super competitive, and we were getting thrown out on our ear all the time. So that's probably one of the reasons why when we got to the party, they say, "Who are you?" and things of
No,
that
no,
nature.
you hired me. Who are you? But they didn't
So,
know there was no communication either between the people at Bad Boy,
uh-huh.
and even the publicist. That's how
Yeah, that's not
disorganized.
good. That's not good.
Yeah, that's how
That's not good.
disorganized everything was.
So Valerie actually, I then started calling Valerie for video, and you didn't charge me, but I think, I mean, I didn't have the money, but the idea was that because these were celebrities, and we knew that where this was going, that Valerie would be credited with filming the segments, right? I
Right.
think that was the idea.
Yeah.
And if not, then you would have gotten the contact just by being in the room. You then had video to show the people that you've done the work with these other people,
Right.
right? So that was
Right.
the idea. Idea.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was really, it was really exciting. We even did the Damon Dash bash that I
Right,
also.
the Damon Dash
Yeah.
Damon Dash Bash. That
And I
was
like that.
good
I thought that up
because
myself.
what was interesting is during that time also, and I don't know if you knew this, but a lot of people from my college days and my high school days started to come into focus. So remember, we went to this party. Now their party, we talked about this before,
Right.
their party was very, very organized, as you remember. And
Yeah.
what they had was
Very organized. Yes.
they had people like in charge of doing certain things at every point of the room, right?
Yeah.
And my colleague from high school, Josh Hadar, was actually one of the main people that was at the party organizing it. I don't know if you remember that. Josh was sort of, they were like, "Where's Josh? Josh." And then it turned out I knew him, when I was,
Yeah, that
12,
sounds
11 years old.
right. 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 Right.
Right. So I
That
think
time was, yeah.
the guy from Philly, I think it may have been Memphis Bleak,
All right.
maybe was the guy that was
Right.
the
Yes.
Memphis Bleak was the
Yeah.
star of the hour, and all of the players were in the room. There were women in the back serving food, right, like soul food. They were dressed with aprons on.
I can't believe you remember that. I
Yeah,
totally don't remember the food part. I just
yeah,
remember being crowded, being organized, and you and I trying to get through, to get different people on camera.
we did
Um,
that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we did that.
yeah,
And
we
then
did that.
Jay-Z came at the end and showed, like, just made a guest appearance and then rolled out,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
then after that, we said, "Okay, we're leaving." So you said, "Okay, now it's time to go." Right?
You can only take so much.
No, you can only take so much. Right. So I mean, look, Val's the person that came and got my box, helped me to get my boxes when they got rid of me. You know,
That was
uh,
twice, I think. Did
it
we have
was
to do it?
twice. So either
I'm
I
glad you're
saw
not
it.
getting fired anymore, David.
What?
I'm glad you're not getting fired anymore.
But it was, look, in all seriousness, it was very, very competitive because being
Yeah.
in media, it was as big as Wall Street used to be.
It was huge at the time,
It was huge at the
I
time.
mean, it was really huge. I mean, it's a little different now because it's
Mhm.
really huge, and everybody's walking around with an iPhone and everything like that.
Right, right.
So a lot of things are different. You have a lot of these people actually going and filming themselves, and putting themselves on Instagram, all that
That's
kind of
right.
stuff.
That's
But
right.
it was kind of, I feel like this high fevered pitch
Right.
during that time because there were a lot of different things going on musically, artistic wise. I mean, New York was still a very exciting place to be.
Hmm.
you know, with all the music, different genres of music that were coming out, you know, with the art scene that was happening.
Yep.
You know, it was kind of fun to be a part of all that in some way.
Right.
And you know, got it all on tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Well,
got it all on tape.
tell us what questions I have. As you were filming, I mean, I left, when did I leave? In '07. So you were still doing, there were other projects that you had that you were doing. Is there anyone that sticks out besides the ones that you and I did that I don't really know about? Do you know of anyone?
Well, I mean, you know, I like to work on a lot of different things. And, you know, my business is a referral business.
Hmm.
So, you know, my name gets put around through word of mouth. And, you know, I work with all different kinds of musicians or performers. I still shoot weddings, you know, I do that, which is interesting in itself because I do a lot of the elaborate weddings, you know. But I've been working, I'd say for the past 4 years, on an experimental film series with, she's become a friend of mine, called Widow, and she's got short films that she does. I'm just shooting this stuff. I'm basically the director of photography.
Hmm.
And so we've done things like we went to Iceland and filmed. We went to the Salt Flats and filmed. And we did a lot of filming in New York City over the years. And she's gone and she sculpted those pieces together, and she sent them out to a lot of film festivals. And she's, oh my God, every time I turn around, she's getting them in a film festival, you know, and she won some awards for that as well.
Hmm.
So that's been pretty exciting, you know, doing that. I don't like to always get stuck shooting the exact same thing all the time. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, for me, storytelling has always been something that has enriched me because I learn a lot about a lot of different things that I wouldn't know about had I not, you know, worked with certain people. And so I'm working on that. I'm also currently collaborating with two other people on, we don't have a working title yet either, but it's going to be a documentary about Native American decolonization and the music that the Native Americans, how they influenced American music, and how music collectively, you know, holds this culture together. So this kind of started as an offshoot. I gotten a call from a friend of mine who is a sound engineer, recording engineer, you know, and he lives in my building. And I went upstairs and I walk in and I look to the right and I see all these gold albums and platinum albums that he has hanging on his wall, you know, that I never knew that he had, you know. And I'm like, this could be interesting. So he was doing a thesis. He was getting his master's in audio engineering, and what he wanted to do as part of the thesis is include video. And
Hmm.
his thesis was about, you know, the Native American influence on the blues. He's part Blackfoot, so he's got roots in, you know, in the indigenous people culture. And so he had different people that he wanted to talk to and interviews, and most of them were musicians, you know. One was actually a hip hop performance artist, and she takes and she uses language from her tribe. Her tribe is out of Alaska. The name escapes me right at the moment, but she raps
Hmm.
using rap beat and stuff like that, using that language. So anyway, out of that came this idea of blowing this up into a full length documentary.
How do you
So,
find, how do they come to you? Like, how do they, because this is a very specific,
yeah.
um, not request, but specific idea.
Yeah, well,
Where do they find you, or how does it?
he found me because he knows me. You know, I mean, we kind of do gardening together outside in the co-op,
Mhm.
and his name was given to me by a woman that works with me and volunteers in the garden. She happens to be in the arts as well. She's a stylist, And she knew that I did video, and I guess he was talking to her, and he said, "Oh, I want to include video," you know. And she said, "Well, hey, I know somebody who lives in the building, you know, Valerie."
Mhm.
And so I ran into him on the bus.
Right.
Big city, small town. I ran into him on the bus, and we started talking about it. And he said,
Right.
"You know, this is kind of my angle. This is what I want to do." And that's how it started. So I went up and I shot some interviews. I put together the piece for him, you know, and he submitted it. And then along the way, we were talking about actually expanding this, you know,
Mhm.
into music's influence on American music through the Native American population, but also, you know, how the arts, you know, when certain cultures are experiencing hardships, whatever it might be, you know, it could be discrimination, it could be you know, genocide, whatever, you know, there is the arts that keep them together, you know, your music, your painting, whatever. And so we're taking the angle of music and
Mhm.
how music brings all these cultures together and keeps them together, because a lot of the youth out of a lot of these indigenous cultures, they're becoming detached from their heritage.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, you know, they want to use music to keep them involved, you know, to reattach them to who they are, the root of who they are. So we're just starting this, you know. There's 2 executive producers. I'm basically going to be the DP, you know,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
the editor too. You know, it's just scratching the surface. We're in
Right.
talk.
Right. I understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
And just so folks understand, Valerie has a background in music. You majored in music at
right.
Duquesne,
Yes,
and right around the time that I met you, I remember. I mean, this is how I don't know how I met you through Adrian Pauly.
yes.
That's how I met you.
Lawyer side of you.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how, because Adrian's a lawyer. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. These are the people I'm supposed to be hanging out with. I don't know about Adrian. Adrian, you know, is really, really special person. That whole crew was very special. And it was had I not hung out with them, I wouldn't have met you. But it was
Right.
something that you were doing things. I said, wait a minute, I think I'm supposed to be in the East Village. And then what happened was, I think we hung out at a party, and I think within a couple days, somebody called me and said, there's a space available. And it was literally like a closet. It was the size of a closet. I put in what do you call it? A fold away bed in there. I mean, I stuffed so many things in there.
Good
But I
old
had a
David.
board. I didn't even have a door. I had a board, a card. What was it? A large.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't have a door. I didn't have a
Oh,
door.
that's
I had
right.
a large piece of wood to keep out the cat. So anyway,
Oh my God.
what else? So that you also talked about it was a wedding with Sonia Sotomayor.
Right. Well, you know, with a lot of the weddings that I do, it's with people that have healthier budgets,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or at the time, you know, had healthier budgets. I don't know what it's like for them now, but so I got the opportunity to shoot a lot of interesting weddings on a lot of different properties, and there was this bride who worked down in D.C. and she clerked for
Supreme
Sonia
Court
Sotomayor.
Justice.
Yes,
Yes.
Supreme Court Justice. And this was right as she had gotten nominated, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, she was going to become, you know, the next Supreme Court Justice of the United States. And but until then, you know, she was going to officiate her law clerk's wedding.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So they had it in New York, and they had it at the Metropolitan Club, which
Mm-hmm.
is this, you
Oh
know,
yeah, sure,
yeah,
sure.
big club off of Fifth Avenue, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And so, you know, I go walking in there, and you know, I'm shooting all the pre-ceremony stuff and everything like that. So right before
Mm-hmm.
the ceremony is going to start is when Sonia Sotomayor came in. And of course, before I could even get into the room, you know, for the ceremony, I've got her, like, see her bodyguards
Yeah, sure.
basically, you know, asking me for my ID
Yeah,
and
of course.
checking out the camera and stuff like that, and make sure they had me turn it on, you
Uh-huh.
know, so to be sure that I didn't have a bomb inside of it to blow
Right.
everything up.
Uh-huh.
And you know, kind of really interesting because when it comes down to it,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of these weddings, I mean, they're weddings. It's nothing more than that. They could be more elaborate. And yes, it might be, Vanessa Williams' daughter's event, or it could be, Sonia Sotomayor is going to be there, or Gwyneth Paltrow could be there, you know. But when it comes down to it, it's a wedding,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I
but
shoot it. Yeah, I
like, I
shoot
mean,
it.
but yeah, come on. You made a the thing that was interesting is that you made a calculated attempt at, I mean, this was, I think you were the first person that was a creative person that I actually saw come up with a business plan, have a strategy, have a pricing, even increased your pricing at a certain period of time. This is, and the funny thing is, you guys, she would always call me at right around the time where she was about to do it. And not that I, had all of the right information. It was like a sounding board. And I was like, okay, it sounds good to me, whatever. I mean, but you would actually execute everything that you said. I see it this way, and therefore it's gonna, I have to do A, B, and C. So these
Yeah,
big weddings were really key part of it because they had the budget, and then you could do more of your stuff. You
right.
could do more with the
Exactly.
video. Are you
Yeah.
still laying music on top of the videos for each event like that, or?
Yeah, yeah. It's all licensed music now, which is really great, because it's a whole new ball game with stuff like that. And you get to listen to a lot of artists that haven't necessarily been signed by major labels. Some of it's a little plastic sounding, but you can always find some gems in there. But just the idea that you can go in and license music for something like that at a reasonable price, because there are your other options are, if you actually wanted to try to license music by a signed artist, that could run into like the thousands, tens of
Right.
thousands of dollars. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can now do, that tools that you have at your disposal that you didn't have at your disposal before, including the size of the cameras.
Yeah.
It's very different now.
Have you purchased a new camera since? Well, I'm sure you have, but I mean, have you? I mean,
Yeah,
you upgraded, and are you there with
right.
the times? Because I'm sure that the equipment now is.
It changes all the time, and it changes so quickly. you
Mm,
know I mean, so you have to really kind of buy something that you feel is going to work for you, and you can make your money back on it.
hmm
But it's always changing, and it's shrinking. The
What
size
do
of
you
the
mean by that? Shrinking or what?
Well, I have my little iPhone
Oh,
here.
right. Okay, okay. So it
you know
doesn't take as much
it's a
to
it's
do
your
the
little
work.
iPhone. Yeah, I mean, which I kind of like too, because I don't like to be burdened by a lot of equipment. And
Right.
that's I used to
Cool.
carry those shoulder cameras.
Right.
uh,
Yes. And you don't
you
have to do that as much anymore.
don't have to do that anymore. It makes it easier to kind of work your way through crowds and do things
hmm
like that.
hmm
But it's a changing industry, and there's a lot more people in it. It's really become saturated.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen as a result of what we are going through at this current moment? I mean, have you, um, I see it as an opportunity. I mean, it was very funny because I went into the barber here, and he always asked me, what you'll find is funny. He always asked me if I'm working or not, because he actually saw me when I had gotten fired from another job.
Who helped you carry your box?
Right. So I went in there, but that was another sort of, you guys, I mean, look, I'll go into why I think I've been fired so many times. And I'm embellishing. I'm
Yeah,
embellishing because it's not just like, hey, you're fired. It's always kind of a maneuver to get you out. If you're competitive, that's what happens. And
sure.
so it was 2017, and he's like, "Are you working?" He's always Italian. Lavori. So what was I going to say? Something about I told him. Oh, I said, but it's an opportunity. And he's like, and he just repeated, "Oh yeah, okay, it's an opportunity," or
Mm,
whatever. And I do
right.
believe there is one, and I think part of it is, and you and I know this. Now everybody's on the same playing field, I believe.
For sure.
leveled the playing field a
Oh,
bit.
yeah,
And so
right.
you can get, if you're really good at what you do, and you can come up with a solution for people, then it can work in your favor. Um,
Well, it's a reset.
yeah, it's a reason.
This
Yeah.
whole thing is a reset. And, it's going to come down to, especially in let's say, for example, the wedding industry.
Hmm.
There's a lot of small businesses in the wedding industry. There's a lot of small businesses in general, and I'm surprised that this government over here hadn't recognized that before. But there's a lot of small businesses, and I was talking to actually a friend of mine who is really involved in the wedding industry. She's an event planner, and I was saying, what do you think is going to happen? And it's basically, it comes down to the same thing. There's only so many that are going to survive and
Yeah.
others that aren't. And I don't know what that means yet. I'm established. I have other colleagues who are established. We're fortunate that we got in on the time period that we got in on. But people maybe that are just starting out, photographers, filmmakers that are just starting out. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to these businesses.
Hmm.
I hope they stick around. But I don't know. It's a huge question mark right at the moment. I
Hmm.
think everybody's just happy at the moment, right now, to just take it one day at a time. I mean, as best they can, given the situation.
Hmm. And then I'll ask the question about women in the industry, because I mean, let me set this up this way.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
think this is my opinion. When we were first, when you and I were sort of like battling it out for jobs in New York City, it was tough. I think it was
Yeah.
tough for everyone. What's happened as a result of this Me Too movement
Mm.
is we now can see who was blocking and controlling everything
Mhm.
when we were there trying to move up. So the people at the top were these people that are now being kicked out.
Right.
And for whatever reason, there was a certain culture that existed in these media companies, which made it very, very difficult for people, particularly women as well, um, specifically women, I mean. Um, but I think things are so different now that I think that women have opportunities now more so than ever. I don't know if women believe that. They still might be thinking about what they cannot achieve, but because things are so easy to do, like you just picked up the iPhone, right, and said, okay, I just shoot like this. If you're good at what you do, you now have a voice, similar to what's happening with me with this video series. I would not have been able to do this when you and I met.
Right.
It would
Yeah.
not have made a difference.
Right. Well, technology is certainly allowed, it's kind of opened the playing field up.
Yeah,
So, if you have a camera and you can shoot, depending on your idea, you can go and do that. You can make a film and you can put it on YouTube. You can make a film and put it on Vimeo, and you can basically ask people to support it by donating money to it.
that's right.
You can do a GoFundMe to raise money for different things. I'm not sure exactly how, the corporate culture has changed just yet,
Hmm.
because I think there's still a lot of stuff going down
Yes.
that we haven't heard about. I think it's changed in the sense that women feel more empowered to speak about it and
Mhm.
to call it what it is and to nail somebody for it. I think what's happening is, when things first start to emerge, it goes to the extreme. That pendulum really swings to the one. So, if a guy just kind of touches your shoulder with his fingertip, you better watch out. So it's at that extreme point. I think at some point it'll shift back kind of into the middle, where there's an understanding of the differences of how somebody is relating to you, you
Mhm.
know. But right now, I still don't know. I'm not immersed in that corporate culture to know, and even on the media side, you know, not really sure where that's going right at the moment. I think there's probably a heightened sensitivity,
Right.
but I also think that guys try to get away with it, try to get away with all the time. So I don't know.
I mean, specifically when you think about the people that have recently been kicked out of their jobs,
Yeah.
it has been all
Hmm.
of the people that because
Yep.
it's not that many players, right? So
Yeah.
NBC, Andy Lack is stepping down, Charlie Rose got booted,
Good for him.
Matt
Deserve.
Lauer,
Yep.
Matt Lauer,
Yes.
Harvey Weinstein. I mean, we interfaced with almost all of those people indirectly
Right.
when we were doing, what we were doing back then.
And the thing about it too is, you know, I mean, for as large as New York is, it's also quite small within certain industries, you know. So I knew people that worked at Charlie Rose before you even worked at Charlie Rose,
Yeah, you were the
you
one that
know?
was confirming names,
Yeah, you know,
giving me the 411, as they say.
oh yeah, you know, and I mean, it's the same with people working in news at CBS or Fox or whatever, you know, and you would always hear these little rumblings of things that were happening, you know, with Charlie Rose. I had heard about stuff a long time ago of what kind of person he was,
Yes.
you know, which was not very flattering, by the way, you know, and so, you know, you see when you're inside, you see what's going on and what's really happening and how some people are, you know. So I mean, that's why I'm very curious about the whole thing with Ellen DeGeneres and what she's being accused of in terms of her behavior towards the people that work
Uh-huh.
for
You've
her.
heard about that too, right?
Oh yeah, well, you know, I'm like, I wish she would kind of say something to maybe defend herself, but I haven't heard anything yet, you know.
Uh, uh, uh,
So
uh,
I mean, you know, but so you kind of hear these things and you hear these rumblings, and then years later, when
uh-huh.
it pops out, and it's like, oh, like Ricky Martin being gay, you know, I heard about that. I can't tell you for how long I heard about that, you know,
That was
and
one of the big ones, right?
that was one of
Like
the
when
big
we
ones,
were
you
coming
know.
up. Uh-huh.
Everybody was like, oh, he's gay, he's gay, he's gay, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, he became open about it and talked about it. And I'm like, oh, that's so old. That news is so old. Yeah.
Well, look, my younger sister would be, I would tell her some of the things that I knew back then, and she was stunned because we would know it. You would know it first, not me. Valerie would know it first, then me, and then I would, tell my sister, and
And then
she
you
was,
would share it.
yeah, and then she would be shocked. It was like we were getting the news first. One of the highlights of being in New York is that you did get the news and not just what was on television,
Right.
right? You got the real scoop, right? And
Well, it's interesting because you find that people really do like to talk.
yes,
They do want to share information. You
yes.
know, I mean, I could just tell you countless of conversations where people would say things to the side, you know, off to the side about something, you know, and be quite okay with it. They really needed to do that, you know, wanted to do that. So, yeah, it's a little gossipy, I guess.
Well, yeah, it works. It works. I'm going to ask you to tell the audience the story about when we finished taping at Puffy's party. And I said, do not give the tape to them
Right,
until you get the money.
right.
And you gave them the tape and didn't get the money.
But before I gave them the tape, I made a
Uh-huh.
copy.
Yeah, you did make, of course.
I made a copy.
She has copies of everything, right? Where, you have copies.
I'm like, you're not going to get this tape and not pay me. I'm making a copy. So I
And I
made.
knew he wasn't going to pay you. I was like, he's
I
not
knew he
going to
wasn't
pay
going
you.
to pay me either because I found out later he did this to another photographer, actually.
Uh-huh.
The woman that
Uh-huh.
I knew, you know, she's like, yeah, he didn't pay me either.
And do you remember when I actually drove with you to Bad Boys?
No, actually, I was with myself when I
You
was
were by
going to.
yourself, and I was
Yes.
waiting for you I said, when you go, make sure that you do. I gave you instructions. I think I gave you instructions about how you're supposed to conduct
Remember.
yourself, right? I gave you
Wow.
instructions about how to conduct yourself when you got there. And then I asked, when you came back, I wanted detail about how everything went. And you said that you double parked, or you parked your car.
I drove around because
Uh-huh.
the offices were in Times Square somewhere,
Right.
and it was, I think, around 5 o'clock. It was at the worst possible time
Uh-huh.
that they wanted the tape. And I can't remember why I had my car. I might have been coming back from a shoot. I don't
Right.
recall because I don't drive my car in the city. So there had to be something that I had done that I needed the car for. I
Uh-huh.
could not find a place to park. I kept driving around and I got really ticked off. And then I was ticked at him too. Not that I had met him, but I was ticked at him too, ticked about the whole event, ticked about the fact that, it was just, the whole thing was just annoyed me. Let's put it like that.
And
So
yeah.
I parked my car illegally. I was sure I was going to go and get a ticket for it, which in New York, I think could have been like around a $250 ticket, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I went into the building and I was downstairs with the turnstiles, and I told the front desk that I was here. I can't remember my contact's name, but I was here to see him. He came down.
Who is he? The contact.
The contact.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
He was a, he was a guy. He was like
He's the guy that called me to
assistant.
hire, to supposedly
Yeah.
hire me for this.
Yes.
And I'll think of his name after we hang up. I'm sure of it. But so he goes, "You want to come up and meet Puffy and J-Lo?" And I'm like, "No, I have my car, parked outside. I'm going to get a ticket. I have to get out of here."
You said no. I'm double parked. I'm double parked. Like, I don't have time to meet some damn Puffy and
I think
J-Lo.
like for about 7 years after that, you reminded me of that story.
In other words, everybody, I saw that as an opportunity to, further cement the relationship. But you know what? Who
And I
knows
was
what have
irritated.
happened? Who knows what have happened? Because, based on the reputation, it was,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so I understand why you were doing it, or
But
why you
the
did it.
funny thing is, I guess this kind of goes with the way that I approach work.
Everything, yeah.
I'm just kind of looking at it like he's a client.
Yes.
I mean, I think the only time I'm a little more sensitive to the idea of who the person might be like that, like if they have notoriety of any type, is to
Uh-huh.
just be careful, in the way that I shoot them, how I shoot them. I'm a little more protective in that respect, giving
Mhm.
them their distance. Like I was shooting a wedding one time where Sigourney Weaver, was a good friend of the family, and she was there, and I'm like, I'm not going to hang around her. I'll shoot her a little bit, it's not her wedding. I have
Right.
a job to do,
Uh-huh.
and it's the same with stuff like this. So I kind of approach every job basically the same way. So I
Right.
wasn't thinking, oh, it's Sean, Puffy wants me to come up, and J-Lo. I'm like, I'm really ticked off at this person. My car's outside. I'm in New York. In New York, we're all important, David.
Yes, of course. Well, look, I'm going to leave it there. It was so good talking to you, and as we say, chopping it up.
Well, thank
And
you.
and
It certainly added a little sunshine to my day.
oh, thank you. Right. Likewise, Valerie, always.
Be well, my friend.
All right, and we'll talk very
We'll
soon.
talk. Okay, ciao, ciao.